Hare Krishna. You can get those two for me. Okay. Thanks. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Randana Yashodanandana Bhajana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Nārāyaṇam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nārāyaṇa Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil. And loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of May, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 7, which is the Science of God. Chapter 9, Prahlāda pacifies Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva with prayers. Text number 2. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtva Tam Mahad Adbhutam Drishtva Tam Mahad Adbhutam Adrishta Shuta Purvavat Adrishta Shuta Purvavat. I'm sorry. That was Purvatvat. Adrishta Shuta Purvatvat. Sa no peyaya shankita. Sa no peyaya shankita. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtva Tam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtva Tam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtva Tam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Maharaj. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Guru Krishna. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Kalpita. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devair Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam adrishta shrutapurvatvat sanopeyaya shankita. Who's next? Go ahead. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devar Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shrutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Sakshat Shri Preshita Devar Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shrutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Anyone online?
Sakshat Shri Preshita Devai
Sakshat Shri Preshita Devai
Drishtvatam Mahad Adbhutam
Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam
Adrishta Shruta Purvatvat
Adrishta Shrutapurvatvat
Sanopeya Shankita.
Sanopeyaya Shankita. Ladies? Sakshat Shri Preshita Deva Drishtvatam Mahadadbhutam Adrishta Shrutapurvatvat Sanopeyaya Shankita. Sakshat, directly. Shri, the goddess of fortune. Preshita, being requested to go forward before the Lord. Devai, by all the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Drishtva, after seeing. Tam, him, Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva. Mahat, very big. Adbhutam, wonderful. Adrishta, never seen. Ashruta, never heard of. Purvatvat, due to being previously. Sa, the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi. Na, not. Upeyaya, went before the Lord. Shankita, being very much afraid. Translation. The goddess of fortune, Lakṣmīdevī, was requested to go before the Lord by all the demigods present, who because of fear could not do so. But even she had never seen such a wonderful and extraordinary form of the Lord, and thus she could not approach him. Please repeat. The goddess of fortune, Lakṣmīdevī, was requested to go before the Lord by all the demigods present, who because of fear could not do so. But even she had never seen such a wonderful and extraordinary form of the Lord, and thus she could not approach him. Purport. The Lord has unlimited forms and bodily features. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam. These are all situated in Vaikuntha. Yet Lakṣmīdevī, the goddess of fortune, being inspired by Leela Shakti, could not appreciate this unprecedented form of the Lord. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya recites the following verses from the Brahmanda Purana. Adrishta Shrutapurvatvad. Sound familiar? That's right from the Bhagavatam. Adrishta Shrutapurvatvad anyai sadharanaya janai Nṛsiṁham Shankiteva Shrir Lokamohayano Yayao Prahlāde Chaiva Vatsalya Darshanaya Harerapi Gyatva Manastata Brahma Prahlādam Preshayat Tada Ekatraikasya Vatsalyam Vishesha Darshayed Dadihi Avarasyapi Mohaya Kramenai Vapi Vatsalaha. In other words, for the common men, the form of the Lord as Nṛsiṁhadeva is certainly unseen and wonderful, but for a devotee like Prahlāda Mahārāja, such a fearsome form of the Lord is not at all extraordinary. By the grace of the Lord, a devotee can very easily understand how the Lord can appear in any form he likes. Therefore, the devotee is never afraid of such a form. Because of special favor bestowed upon Prahlāda Mahārāja, he remains silent and unafraid, even though all the demigods, including even Lakṣmīdevī, were afraid of Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva. Nārāyaṇa paraksarve nakutashchana bibbiti, Bhagavatam 6:17-28. Not only is the pure devotee of Nārayaṇa, like Prahlāda Mahārāja, unafraid of any dangerous condition of material life, but also if the Lord appears in order to mitigate the fear of a devotee, the devotee maintains his status of fearlessness in all circumstances. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandjana shalakaya chakshur unmidatam mena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So here is the great contrast being expressed. We witnessed in previous verses, each of the demigods came forward, beginning with Lord Brahma, and then Lord Shiva, and then the Kinnaras, and many others. And they offered their individual prayers, and I don't know if you noticed, but every single one is in a different meter. They were like, trying to give their best and most interesting prayers to the Lord. But each one, if you study them closely, they're so thankful to the Lord to restore their position of whether it's being able to dance and sing Gandharvas and the Charanas, or Lord Brahma being, Lord Brahma wasn't subdued, but still he was affected by the whole, rule of Hiranyakashipu. So Brahma and Shiva, they were in a little different position, but still they were offering the Lord the prayers from their own particular position. And all of the demigods and sub-demigods, they were thankful that finally they were able to resume their activities. But their activities, don't forget, these demigods, they're Sakama devotees. Indra offered a very, very nice prayer with a unique meter. And, but Indra, we know from experience, from reading his pastimes, he periodically loses his composure. And he allows his senses to take over. We're sitting here in the Govardhan because of the Govardhan Leela. And he went nuts. He was going to annihilate the whole town of Vrindavan and all the residents there. So Krishna, he stole his pride. When Indra's sacrifice, he stopped. He stole the Deva's bride by playfully uplifting Giri Govardhan to hide in friends and cows beneath the hill for 7 nights and days. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest place. That's verse 3 of the first Kunja Viharashtaka by Rupa Goswami. So, but Prahlāda Mahārāja wasn't in that position, right? Prahlāda Mahārāja, he wasn't the Maharaj yet, probably he always called him Maharaj. But Prahlāda was, from before his birth, he was taught the science of Bhakti by Narada Muni. And from the first encounter we read about in the Bhagavatam, where he's attending school by Chandana Marka, and his father is hoping he's being trained in the intricacies of politics and Machiavellian art. So he takes him on his lap, smells his head. He's very affectionate, naturally, and he says, "What's the best thing you learned today?" Yeah, no, that was the second time. He says, Tatsaru manye asudavaya dehinam sada samudvignadiyam asadgrahat hitvatma patam griyamandakupam vanam gatoyan hadamashriyeta. So the first thing he does, Prabhupada points out when he quotes this verse, I heard him give a class on this, the class he gave on this verse. He didn't call him by the name father. He said, Asura Varya, or best of the demons. It's very funny. So from that first line, he's showing his fearlessness, So he says, Tat sadhu manne. Now the word sadhu has different meanings. Sadhu, of course, means a great saint, a devotee. sadhu sangha. But it can also mean the best thing. It can be the best, yeah. Or simply bravo. So he'll be doing some pastime in the forest, and he'll do some extraordinary thing, kill the demons, and his friends will say, oh, sadhu, sadhu. So it means bravo, bravo. I think most devotees, when they heard that, because the devotees were also offered that, said, oh, they're calling him a sadhu. Anyway, it's a small difference. So sadhu here means the best. So the best thing, O Father, tat sadhu manye, in my opinion, O best of the demons, asodavaya, best for whom? Prabhupada said, dehinams, for every embodied being. It's not just best for me or you. Tat dehinam, who are sada sambudvigna dhyam. This is very, every word is important. So whose consciousness, whose intelligence is always disturbed in this material world. This is the material, conditioned soul. Always, sada, some udvigna, completely disturbed by dangers that may come, losses, so many things, right? Just being in the material world. Dehinam, sadasma. Now, why are they so disturbed? A sadgrahat. This is such an important concept. A sadgrahat, because they're holding on, graha, grabbing on, holding on for dear life to that which is a sat, which is constantly changing. The body. First, in the beginning of second canto, Sukadeva Goswami has a nice little lesson there. I always love these little lessons in the first canto, second canto, because I always think, oh, the great sages, Vyasadeva was thinking, well, maybe these Kali, you guys, will never get through 18,000 verses. So I better give them a nice little summary of the philosophy early on. And the first one is the second chapter of the first canto, beginning with, don't tell me, Savai Pung Sang Pado Dharma, Yato Bhakti Hokshaje. What is the supreme dharma? That's the essential question. So the next 15, 16, 17, 18 verses are this complete lesson. We made it into a book, Dharma, the Way of Transcendence. So at the beginning of the second canto, when Pariksit finally sits down, the whole first canto is in many ways, it's very important instruction there, but how the Bhagavatam came to be written, or spoken and written down. So he asks, what should one think about when one is about to die? And Prabhupada makes the point, of course, in the purport, that that's all of us. We don't know when we're going to die. So so Sukadeva says, oh, very good question. You see, O king, this is a very nice question. The question and the answer to this is beneficial for the questioner, the answerer, and those who listen in, which is us, anyone who read the Bhagavatam. But on the other hand, those who are simply materialistic householders who have no spiritual vision, they have millions of subject matters. Well, he says thousands. Now with the internet, is millions and billions and trillions, of subject matters other than Krishna. You see, that simply bewilder their mind. So what are their business? Nidvyahriyate naktam vivayanita bhavayak divachatahe rajan kutumbam bananenava. At night they waste their time sleeping and having sex, and during the daytime they work very hard to get some money so that in the weekend they can shop. Prabhupada uses this word once when he explains kutumba bananenava, means bearing the burden of the kutumba. That's the family, the children, the wife, the extended family to support them. So that's the materialist, trying to enjoy night or whatever, weekends, and otherwise working hard in order to make ends meet like that. And what is their mentality? He says, well, first of all, there's fear. So we have to have a fort. We have to have soldiers to help us. Unfortunately, they're fallible soldiers. Deha patra karatradishu atma sainyeshva sattvapi tesham pamato nidadam pashyan apina pashyati. The first fort is the body. Keep the body strong and stout, Prabhupada would say, healthy, right? Work out. So deha, and then the sons and the other children, and the kalatra, that's the wife, they're also part of our soldiers. Adishu, etc., extended soldiers, insurance companies, whatever. But he says, atma sainyeshu. These are our soldiers to protect the self, to protect our body and ourself. But there are satsu. They're fallible. I mean, how much can you rely on the body? The body is going to dwindle and be a source of great pain and suffering and anxiety. And all the others also, obviously. No matter what you have in this material world, it's asat, it's constantly changing. And your son, I'm not going to name any names, but I used to go to Alacha all the time, twice a year. And there's a lot of Prabhupada disciples there, and one of them I knew from years ago, and I asked him, how you doing? He looked very disturbed in his mind, you know? And his face was turned. I said, what's going on? You okay? He said, no. What happened? My son stole $60,000 from me. He had probably given him, you know, his account number, and so forth. He was sharing, you know, and helping him out, you know. He took all and cleaned out the account. Can you imagine? That's among devotees, you know, and oh God, what a source of... Huh? He was a devotee. Yeah. He had some kind of business, and then boom, you know. But that's the material world, you know. So, Tesham Pamato Nadanam Pasham. So these soldiers, you see, everyone knows their grandfather, great-grandfather, they died already, right? You see, but they don't see. This is Pashyanapi na Pashyati. This comes up again in the Bhagavatam. Physically seeing, but not really understanding the implication of what you see. So, therefore, he says, he's already at the therefore. There's just 3 or 4 verses into his little lesson here. Tasmat bharata sarvatma bhagavani sharohari shrotavya kiditavyasta smartavya kshechitabhayam. If you want to be free of fear, because this whole section here is about fear, how to become fearless. Nṛsiṁhadeva is the basic. So how to be fearless even at the time of death. This is what he's saying. Tasmat bharata, he's Pariksit, it's Shukadev speaking. Sarvatma. He has 3, 4 definitions of God here. The super souls are Bhagavan, Ishvara, Hari. One should shortavya kiditavis smartav chechitaba. If you want fearlessness, hear about, chant, and remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, at all times. Because you never know when that death blow is going to come. So, ichita abhayam. This is very important. This whole section is about fearlessness. That's one of the underlying themes, how Prahlāda and all, you know, his father's torturing him, we've gone through the list. Boiling in oil, crushing by the elephant, poisoning, whatever way they could think. And he was not only immune, he was invincible for that. He wasn't even afraid. He wasn't even disturbed. He was just completely absorbed in thinking of Krishna, and that absorption, he was literally fearless. And that's what's going to happen here. He's the only one who's fearless. Even among the demigods, they give these prayers from a distance. But even Lakṣmī, what to speak of the others, are afraid of actually approaching him because he doesn't get pacified. So back to this beginning of this. It's the same thing. If you want fearlessness, then here chant, remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he has an Etavan verse. Now, in the Bhagavatam, you'll find these periodically. They begin with Etavan or a little variation of it, which means, okay, now we're summarizing, you know, the lesson that's just been had. And they're worth memorizing. Like this one here. Is it the first one that I'll give you? Etavan Etavan evilokesmin pungsang dharma paraksmin. Oh, this is different. Etavan evilokesmin. Oh yeah. Swadharma parinishchaya janmalabhak parakpungsam ante Nārāyaṇa smriti. Many devotees just know that last line, which is like essential. At the end of life, remember Narayan, remember Krishna. You see? Therefore, every human being, whether you're performing your dharma within Varnashram Dharma or some yoga, whatever it may be, the perfection will be if you think of Narayan at the end of life. That's it, like that. So Prahlāda's already there. From the beginning of life, he's thinking of Narayan. he's great, and the results are he's able to, teach. He shows it in his father. He's trying to teach his father. He's not a very good student, but his friends are, his classmates. They're listening raptly to him. They say, "Oh, it's different hour. Let's go play." He said, "No. Komarachare pragyo dharma bhagavataniya, from even childhood. One should practice Bhagavat Dharma. This is the source of the verse of Bhagavat Dharma discourses that Prabhupada gave in Vrindavan, comes from this verse. Dharma Bhagavataniya durlabham manusham janma. Right? Getting a human form of life is very rare. Tadapya dhruvam artadam. Although temporary, it's full of meaning, because there only artadam does it give the final goal of life, the sva-arta. Not the arta, that's dharma, arta, kama, moksha. That's money, anything you value. But this is the supreme value of life, is getting free of birth and death and going back to Godhead. So back to our verse here. This is the final. They figured, well, Lakshmi, she's intimate with Nārayaṇa. She shouldn't be afraid, but even she was afraid here. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that all these forms, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, and Antarupam, they're all situated in Vaikuntha. Now, I just want to give, I like to give a little editorial perspective sometimes, so that, because when you read Prabhupada's books, you can apply them. The word infallible. Now, that's in the Bhagavad Gita, it's described, and infallible, of course, means, if you look it up in the dictionary, never makes a mistake. Now, of course, that applies to Krishna, but that's not what but way Prabhupada used it. Achyutam. Chuta means to fall. You see? We're all chuta. We've fallen in the spiritual world. But Krishna, obviously, is never affected like that, so he's achyuta. Infallible. Prabhupada would pronounce it that way, and that was the meaning he gave the word. And infallible, can't fall. Obviously, that's what it means, right? No, in crazy English language, it's come to mean something else. Doesn't make a mistake. So just be aware that that English word doesn't appear here, but he quotes the verse, Advaitam, Achyutam, and Achyutam, Anadim, and Antarupam. This is from, of course, Brahma Samhita. So all of these they all have their Vaikuntha planets. All these different avatars, they have their planets. And Nṛsiṁha has his. But still, his feature is just try to visualize this. We generally paint that famous painting, but I think he had maybe 4 arms, and 2 of them are ripping apart of Hiranyakashipu. But he has thousands of arms, and they're all bearing his weapon, of those nails, those incredible nails. And he's just annihilated this huge army by cutting him up. You can imagine the blood everywhere. It's a fearsome scene, and he's still roaring. So, I mean, it's a frightening scene. And they offered their nicest prayers from a distance, but he wasn't pacified. So maybe Lakshmi can do it. I'm not going there, So then they're going to suggest to Prahlāda that he go. In the next verse, I think, is when they do it. Thereafter, they requested Prahlāda, And Prahlāda never shows any fear. I mean, he didn't show any fear before Hiranyakashipu, so I was obviously not going to show any fear before Nṛsiṁhadeva. But it says he approached very slowly. It's very interesting. He came slowly, slowly, slowly. And then he offered his obeisances. I don't think it says any other that offered their obeisances. They just offered their prayers. So he offers his obeisances, and immediately Nṛsiṁhadeva, his heart is completely softened. And we get the Komala Nṛsiṁha. You've seen those wonderful pictures, illustration. We had a deity of Komala Nṛsiṁha here. Remember that? Years and years and years ago. From Mexico he came. He was on the altar there for years. And then he went up to LA, and I think he's up in the ISV now. So that's the change, and Prahlāda is able to bring that out, and he will show. He offers his obeisances, and then he says, "What can I did just 5 years old. I can't offer the prayers." But he's touched by the hand of Nṛsiṁha, and he's given this inspiration where he can speak this beautiful Sanskrit, And these prayers are often quoted. Prabhupada would quote, especially 2 of them at the end, which are like Sankirtan movement. Where Prahlāda shows his mood of trying to share and trying to give Krishna consciousness, not just to be Krishna conscious. So I'll just share those to you, and then another one which Prabhupada doesn't quote so much, which when I read it, I was just this is a prayer that I want to know. So the ones that's near the end. And it's this famous one, Prabhupada quoted all the time, Naiva udvijay padadaratya vaitaranyas. This word udvijay again, which is disturbed. And he's saying, I'm not disturbed at all. You see? Now, this is Vaitarani river between the material and spiritual world. And he's saying, basically, I'm always in the spiritual world, even though I seem to be physically here, because I'm with you and you're across, you're always in the spiritual world. So I'm not at all fearful of anything. It's difficult to cross over material and get to this spiritual world. And any time I want. That's such a wonderful line. At any place and any time, and this is very pertinent for us, I can sing your wonderful glories and immerse my mind in an ocean of nectar. See? And this reveals what he was doing when they were trying to kill him. He was, thinking of Nṛsiṁhadeva, and he was enjoying. He wasn't suffering. So that's Prahlāda. Prahlāda is not in the least disturbed, and he's in bliss all the time. But then comes this line: "Shoche tato vimukachetasa indriya." I am lamenting. What are you lamenting? It's almost like Ramchandra would say to Madhavendra, "Why are you, not understanding?" But Ramchandra Puri. But no, it's a shoche tato. Why are you lamenting, Prahlāda? Vimukachetasa indriyata maya sukaya bodhamudvahato vimudham. I'm lamenting for all of these fools and rascals in the material world who have turned their face away from you. Vimukha chetasa. We have also turned our face away from Krishna. That's how we came here. That's in that famous verse, Bhayam Dutiya Benameshadaksi. So that's the whole problem. For some reason or other, I had a devotee, one guest who comes here. Why is it that if we're enjoying in the spiritual world so much with Krishna, why do we give that up and come here? It's a good question, and it can't even really be answered. The only answer, we have that minute independence. And because we're marginal, if we falter a minute and we feel that we would learn to enjoy like Krishna rather than serve Krishna, then Maya is right there to give us that opportunity. That's the beginning of our conditioned life. Prabhupada revealed in the 9th canto, you remember that? How our first birth is Brahma. You come down as Brahma, but not all Brahmas go back to Godhead, obviously, because here we are. Anyway, that's a little different thing. But he's describing why he's lamenting. Vimukha indriyartha, for the sake of sense gratification. Indriyartha means sense. Maya sukhaya, the illusory happiness, flickering happiness of sense gratification. These fools and rascals, they've turned from you. Vimudhan, not just muda, but vimudhan, extremely. So, I can't, he's saying, in the next verse he expands upon it, I'm lamenting for them, and I cannot abandon them. And then the next verse, they go together. Prayena deva munayo svavamukti kama, maunam chadandi vidane naparartha nishta. Very instructive. So for the most part, these sages and saints, they are svavamukti kama. They are after their own liberation, and to heck with everyone else. That's a form of lust. That's also in the verse by Lord Chaitanya, who can be peaceful. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakaliya shanta. Bhukti kamis, we know, they're lusty after material. But also the mukti. That's, Prabhupada points out in this lecture on the very first verse of the Bhagavatam. Second verse of the Bhagavatam, describing Dharma projita kaitavotra, the famous line. In this Bhagavatam, here, atra, all cheating religions are kicked out. And Prabhupada points out, and Sridhar Maharaj, the first commentator, he points out that desire for liberation alone is also one of those material desires. Because really, what's the basis of it? To be free of all suffering. Well, we're doing that also. In other words, ordinary people are doing that. They're trying to diminish the suffering and trying to increase the so-called happiness and pleasure. So there's nothing, and then he describes, maunam charanti, they don't speak. And they wander where there's no people, in the wilds of the Himalayas or some forest somewhere, right? Far away from probably go to the hubble bubble of the city. Says you can't practice Ashtanga yoga in the hubble bubble of the city. He's sitting in New York. He'd already experienced uptown the false yogi, right, with Dr. Mishra, that whole thing. So, yeah, we got to go alone, like that. Well, then what happens to all the poor souls who are suffering in the cities, So that's Prahlāda's mood here. So lusty for their own desire, for their own mukti. So what is he going to do? Chaitya Indriya Maya Sukadam Udvitovamuda, they said, I don't see anyone else but you, O Lord, who can save them. And so the implication is, therefore I have to stay in the cities and here and preach. That's the whole mood of the preacher. It's a more advanced position than just going off to the forest and meditating on Krishna. That Prabhupada makes that point. So these are some of the, and then the one that I wanted to share with you that is not so famous, but Prabhupada did include it. He included it, I don't think it was in the Srimad Bhagavatam or something, I think it was the second one, the one he wrote on the ship, Prayer to the Lotus Feet of Krishna. And this is such a wonderful verse. Evam janam nipatitam bababahi kupe kama bikama manayak papatan pasangat kritvatma satsurashina bhagavan vihitam soham katam devisraje davabritya sevam. It's a verse that we can all relate to. So he's painting himself as the greatest devotees often do. He says, oh, I was born into the, amongst these demons who are just involved with sense grab. Even nepatitam, I was fallen into that association. Pabavahi kupe was like falling into a well of snakes. Kama bikamam, and I was, of course he wasn't, but he's painting that. Kama bikamam, and following in their footsteps, I was trying to enjoy this sense gratification. Papatan pasangat, because of bad association. But Devarshi, but the Tampapasang was Kritvatma Sat Surarshina. Very nice phrase. Surarshina is Nārāyaṇa, the rishi amongst the demigods, the sage amongst the demigods. He imparted into me his own qualities. Sangat, I forget the Sanskrit now, but that's what he's saying. He instructed me in the womb. Okay. Surashina, soham katam devisrajeta vabritya sevam. So he's saying, how could I ever give up his service? How could I ever give up his service? And this is a very beautiful purport, and this is the real mood of a serious disciple. In all the difficulties one may have in executing devotional service, we feel, how could I ever give up the service of my spiritual master, who made the effort, to preach and to write the books, of course with Prabhupada, but all these genuine spiritual masters in Lord Chaitanya's line sacrificed their own comfort for giving Krishna consciousness to the fallen souls. And that's the part of their greatness, the essential part of the greatness. So these are some of the coming attractions, these prayers of Prahlāda. It's interesting that all the demigods, they had one prayer, They all of them had one prayer. But Prabhupada has, Prahlāda, he has 30, 40, 50 prayers. And they're each of them, near the beginning, the famous one, Bala Sineya Shadanam Pitado Nṛsiṁha. Oh Nṛsiṁha, without your blessing, no parents can protect their children, no doctors can give you effective medicine, no boat can save you from drowning in the ocean. You have to give your blessing. So this is a very, very important chapter, and Prabhupada really, really gave a lot of lectures on these verses, these prayers, and there's so much instruction here. Prahlāda, after all, he's a Mahāja. Okay, any questions, comments? Maharaj, but we need to give him a mic so that people can hear it. No, I know you don't need, but that people will hear the question. Otherwise I have to repeat it. We should have had it.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Harimo.
So I had a question about the purport. The first line. Let me just get it here. Where the second line, the second sentence. These are all situated in Vaikuntha. Yet Lakṣmīdevī, the goddess of fortune, being inspired by Lila Shakti, cannot appreciate it, the unpresented form of the Lord. I don't understand that sentence. What does Lila Shakti have to do with it?
I think what Prabhupada is saying here is that because we have the deities of the Nṛsiṁhadeva often have Lakṣmīdevī with him, right? So it's not that she's always afraid of him. But the whole idea is that this is to exalt Prahlāda, to show how he alone could pacify Nṛsiṁhadeva, because he had, at this point, the reason he appeared in that form, and the reason he appeared and did it all, was because of his anger at the torment of Prahlāda. And so that's what I understand, that this is a special situation. Otherwise, normally she would have been, she just got right up to him. But I think
what does the word Leela Shakti mean? I have a disciple with that name.
Yeah, it's not an unusual word. Don't we have a Leela Shakti here? Yeah.
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 Inspired by Leela Shakti, could not appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say? The energy that facilitates Krishna's or Vishnu's, Nārāyaṇa, Nṛsiṁhadeva Leela. And, in Vrindavan, I think, who is it that? What is it? Yogamaya. Yeah, well, Yogamaya is a generic term. This is a specific aspect of Yogamaya. But she's overseeing the Leela, so that everyone is in the right mood and all these different things. I think that's what's being spoken here. I'd have to research this particular term, and I could try to, communicate with you, let you know. But it's, in other words, everything is ultimately controlled by the internal energy. This is one of the aspects of the internal energy, to bring out what the whole point is that Prahlāda has this unique relationship, and he's the one who at this point has the full love and attention and compassion of Nṛsiṁhadeva. It's the best I can do with that.
Okay.
I did research Vishwanath Chakravarti, but he didn't have anything on that particular explanation. Anyone else, locally or remotely? Nārāyaṇa Rishi Prabhu, take the mic.
Okay. Prabhupada has mentioned one of his purports in Bhagavad Gita. Time of Pralaya.
What is it?
Time of Pralaya.
Time of Pralaya, of destruction?
Yeah.
Okay.
The inhabitants of Brahmaloka, they all go back to Godhead.
Yeah, that's been fixed.
And elsewhere Prabhupada says, even Brahma has to die. Could you please highlight a little bit?
Yeah. Well, even if you go back to Godhead, your body's going to die, right? So everyone dies, the bodies all die. The point is that there was a revision there, and that Mukunda Maharaj wrote us. Mm-hmm. And he pointed out that there was a seeming contradiction there, because the verse is, right, is Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartanojana. So even on Brahma, you come down, right, from there. But that in the purport it says everyone on Brahma Loka goes up, including Brahma, goes back to Godhead. Right. But the actual verse that's explaining is that those devotees, of course, our Brahma, there's many Brahmas, we know that, right? So this particular Brahma is the head of our Sampradaya. So this Brahma is going back. But even the other entities on Brahmaloka who are pure in Krishna consciousness, they go with Brahma back to Godhead. Otherwise, they stay in the material world, they take birth, or they're merged in Mahavishnu for some time and come out. You see what I'm saying? Is that it's not that every single living entity on Brahmaloka goes back. How is that going to work? As Prabhupada says in the 9th canto, as I mentioned, I can give you the purport, that the first birth of the living entity who's falling from the spiritual world is Lord Brahma. There's a line like that. Well, if Brahma always goes back, then what are we doing? Most of the Brahmins don't go back. They come down here. Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes the jivas, when they don't qualify to become Brahma, the Supreme Lord comes down and he becomes Brahma.
Yes, that's true.
And when he becomes Brahma, he goes back home, back to Godhead after he leaves.
Well, of course, but that's not a full explanation of it. Even those Brahmins who fulfill the function of Brahman in all creation, they're not all pure enough to go back to Godhead. And they come down a step. They don't immediately go down to the lowest. But that's understanding. Otherwise, when I first read that, it was like, really? Every one of those mosquitoes. I mean, they're all living entities, right? And what to speak of the million? They were all Brahma at one time.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And they all lived for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. That's the shortest time.
Yeah.
And then they came down. It just blows. It's a mind blower. So, but that's what it says, is that Brahma doesn't always is not always pure enough to go back to Godhead. But our Brahma, this Brahma is, because he's the head of our sampradaya, and he came down as Brahma Haridas also. He's there.
Right.
So but if you're interested, I can give you the exact wording of how the purport has been adjusted, so that this point comes out. And it's a very good point. Brahma bhuvana loka. If it's always a question of return,
right,
then what about Brahma himself? He's also a living entity.
Right.
But he sometimes returns, back to Godhead.
But still, big question remains in front of us.
Yeah.
As Prabhupada says, all the inhabitants of Brahma Loka, they return back home, back to Godhead, including Brahma.
Yeah, and that's the sentence that was changed.
Yeah.
So
changed.
It's not there anymore. I think in the latest printings it's been fixed. I'll help you with that. Just stay in touch, and I'll give you the change.
Okay.
All right, we have something from David. We have another mic. We can get going here.
Okay, thank you for a wonderful class as always.
Krishna.
In honor, just to follow up on the last question, does that mean that there are certain jivas that never go back to Godhead, or do all jivas eventually go back to Godhead?
Is it on? Just hold it closer.
Do all living entities eventually go back to Godhead in some form or another?
I said that at one point. This is a question of when. It can be a very, very, very long time. But the point is that every living entity eventually comes to the human form. And in the human form, you have a chance, that to hear, to associate, and to get the seed planted. It's rare, but it's get the seed planted. But when you have infinite time, eventually everyone will get the seed planted. But the whole point in our sadhana and everything is that don't waste time. I think I pointed this out the other day. I don't know if you were here yet. There's these 4 regular principles. And for most devotees, you think, well, okay, I got the gambling covered. I'm not into gambling at all. But actually, that's the hardest one, because when we slacken off on our sadhana a little bit, or we're not so urgent, we're gambling that somehow we'll remember Krishna. If death strikes immediately, and you go driving down the highway, 75, 80 miles an hour. I've done it. That's such a dangerous situation. And the whole, there's danger at every step. It's right there. So therefore, that should be, a great impetus for us to try to remember Krishna at every time we get serious, But following those, I'm following the 4 regular principles. But of course, we're not going to the casinos, but we're gambling with this human life. That somehow, it's not such an urgent thing, but it is urgent that we try to remember Krishna at every moment. And that Prabhupada stressed that so many times. And it's right there. Padam padam yanpi padam.
Can that gambling mentality extend to bad association?
Of course. Yes. That and ultimately, that's practically the first step. We associate with that which is helping us to forget Krishna. I like to point out, the fall of the jiva, Well, how did that ever happen? Well, somehow or other, we became attracted, inattentive, whatever, and we have free will. That without free will, there's no love. Therefore, we have to have that minute free will, and that's what marginal means. Jaya Dravida Dasa Brahmana, I don't even know if he's initiated yet. Back in the 67, 68, when he joined, he had this question. which is tied in completely with the fall of the jiva question. Are we always in the marginal position? You know? And yes, that's our constant position. What does Lord Chaitanya say? Jivera swarupoi krishnera nityadas. Now, oftentimes that's what we quote, and that's a central line. The swarup, the constitutional position of every jiva, every single jiva, is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. Jivera krishnera nityadas. But the next line is also important. Krishnera tatasta shakti beda bed prakash. That's part of the answer to what the constitution is. So that second line begins, Krishnera tatasta shakti. Tatasta means the margin, like you go to the ocean. You know? So we are eternally, because this is part of our swarup, we are eternally marginal in the marginal position. And beda beda prakash, simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. These are all essential parts of Lord Chaitanya's giving his philosophy. So what does that mean? You know, so, Bhakti J wrote Prabhupada the letter. Actually, he was afraid to write it, so he asked Ray Rama to write it. Right? Yeah, and Ray Rama wrote him the letter, and he answered it. Said, yes, Prabhupada, yes, we are eternally even in the spiritual world. And that's right from the, So that means that, even there's a chance, if we want to, we can turn away from Krishna. We have that option. So here, having gone through all of this, we should be very determined. No, I don't want to spend one more life here, and so that to be determined to stay under the shelter of Krishna, and that the hearing and chanting and sharing and of course chanting the holy name is meant to make us more and more purified, so that eventually we become totally addicted to Krishna. There's this famous conversation Prabhupada had with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. He's there in the not the manor, but his place, Tittenhurst, whatever it was. And, so he was having a conversation with them, and there's a picture on the wall of them. And they're obviously intoxicated, and they were known for that, So they're asking him that, how do you recognize the guru, genuine guru? So Prabhupada said, you find that person who is most addicted to Krishna. That's what we want. Where I can't even, you weigh the point, I can't even stand not thinking about Krishna, or whatever is trying to make you forget Krishna. Prabhu, don't talk about that. Let's talk about Krishna's pastimes. I was just reading, there's when you read the Krishna book, there's the introduction after the birth and everything, and Parikshit is then actually now, can I hear those childhood pastimes of Krishna, which are most attractive? And Trikadev started speaking, and he talks about the birth, and it was, the Damodar Leela. It's every year when it comes around, you get a chance to sing about it every day. It's just so heartwarming, in every respect. There's God who hides all of that majesty just to become this most, darling little boy, and then he's very mischief. Krishna is he embodies the definition of the word imp. My last word here is from the dictionary. I'm going to give you the definition of imp. What is an imp? A little devil or demon, an evil spirit. Okay, a mischievous child who's, not a devil or a demon, but he causes, havoc in a way. He steals the butter, and he stops his mother, and he does all these things, But then when they come to complain, which is an excuse, his mother Yashoda's friends come. Let me see if I can remember the poem. Yashoda's friends approached her and complained about her naughty child, the butter thief. Though seemingly annoyed, she felt, no. Yashoda's friends approached her and complained about her naughty child, the butter thief. Though seemingly complained, she felt beguiled by little Krishna's loving charm unique. Oh friend, so they're speaking now. Oh friend, this child of yours must be restrained. He simply torments us with no relief. We trust that you will thoroughly chastise this boy who steals and eats our food. I forget the poem. So, but then he looked at them with love-filled eyes, awakening their sweet maternal mood, and And I forget how the poem goes. But the point is that it was an excuse to come and see Krishna, to complain of him. And then they saw him and they were just drowned in an ocean of bliss. And these pastimes are most attractive. We read those, they'll attract us away from everything material. That's the whole point. And we become addicted to hearing and chanting and serving Krishna and telling others about Krishna. That's the whole point. And that's real yoga. That's the best yoga. Okay, I think we better end. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Jai.